Well, hello, my lovelies. Today is going to be the beginning of a brand new series that I'm probably going to have every single year. This is a series where I'm going to talk about all kinds of haunted locations, their history, and some of the legends that now surround these haunted buildings today. So without any further ado, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's jump into some haunted histories. Roll the intro. Welcome back. Now, the first building we are going to talk about in this series is on every top 10 list for a haunted location. This is a place in Kentucky, in Louisville, and it is one of the most scariest, most haunted places in the whole country. We are going to be talking about Waverly Hills Sanatorium. First, I'm going to get a little bit into the history, and then I'm going to tell you some of the famous hauntings and stories to come out of this location. Then I'm going to tell you maybe some random bits about it, and then I'm going to tell you the most haunted spots and who these ghosts are. So, first off, let's talk about the history of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. How did this building come about? Well, Waverly Hills Sanatorium was one of the leading hospitals for tuberculosis when there was no cure. It opened in 1911 and it closed down when there was a cure found for tuberculosis. But in the meantime, especially in Kentucky, it's believed that Kentucky had, all these swamplands and that it was just a perfect breeding ground for tuberculosis. And what was once on the land of a small schoolhouse that Mayor Hayes had wanted for his daughters, then it was closed down, and tuberculosis, wow, that is a hard word to say sometimes. The tuberculosis hospital was originally made to hold about 50 or so people, and then as the outbreak got worse and worse, to the point that 1 in 7 Americans would fall to this illness of tuberculosis, because this was before there was a cure. And what originally was a 50 or so capacity became in the hundreds. And a lot of people died here at Waverly Hills Sanatorium. While it was open, as I said before, Waverly became one of the leading hospitals for research into the cure for tuberculosis. There's actually a documentary that they made at the time, and Waverly Hills was in it, featured in it, for the cure for tuberculosis. That's how big this hospital was, not only for the research, but also for patients. And Waverly Hills, being a leading researcher, they did a lot of experimental things on people, and I'm going to be making trigger warnings right now. If you don't want to hear about bodily kind of gross things, if you don't want to hear about death, or if you're depressed, you probably don't want to watch this. I don't know if it helps other people's depression, but watching things about haunted stuff kind of helps me. I don't know why. When I'm sad, I turn on YouTube. I don't know. So anyway, if you don't want to hear any of those things, please scroll out before I continue. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go. With them being a leading researcher, they did experimental procedures on people. There was hydrotherapy. There was this procedure where they would open up people's lungs, open up the rib cage and replace people's lungs, because this was a lung disease. It started in your lungs. And they would open up the rib cage and use balloons. They would collapse people's lungs. They did a lot of weird stuff here, including electroshock therapy. They did all kinds of ways to try to help cure this illness. And that is part of the reason why today, if you look at a picture of Waverly Hills from above, it is in a bat wing or a wing shape. And that was because back before this illness could be treated or cured, they believed that the best things to help tuberculosis was going to be fresh air and sunlight. And there are plenty of pictures of patients out on one of the various sunroofs that they had, where they were able to just push a patient's bed out and put these people in the sun, in the fresh air, and let nature take care of it as best as it could. And there are a lot of pictures of this. They did not believe that a lot of people would survive TB. And there was even a specific wing or a section where they would push patients that they basically didn't think had any hope of surviving. Not a lot of people survived this. That it got so bad that tuberculosis back then was known as the White Plague, and is very reminiscent of like what happened recently in 2020. So a lot of people died here at Waverly, and it's kind of weird. They don't exactly have a number for just how many people died here. There's not actually a real number. It's somewhere around maybe 6,000, so we can't exactly even trust the records that have survived from Waverly because things are conflicting. When the cure for tuberculosis was eventually found, they did have to close down Waverly Hills. They turned it into a retirement/hospice place, and then it went through a lot of bizarre different like proposals for the land after the retirement home closed down. There was a lot of like weird things they proposed, like a minimum security prison at one point. They wanted to put a giant Jesus statue to compete with the one in Rio de Janeiro on the site, and then a worship center in the old buildings. It went through a lot of different changes, and then this couple bought it in 2001, and now you are allowed to take tours, you're allowed to visit all the buildings that are safe enough to be in, and that is where Waverly is today. And since it has been abandoned and now is being taken care of by this couple allowing tours and ghost hunts, there's a lot of legends. There's a lot of legends, and now we're going to get into the hauntings of Waverly Hills and why this is so infamous. The first entity we are going to talk about is the Creeper, and no, it's not from Minecraft. The Creeper is a creature that a lot of people does not believe is human, and that being with a lot of human spirits. If you don't believe in ghosts, I don't know why you're here. If you don't want to hear about the ghost stories, and you don't believe in ghosts, don't leave hate in the comments first off. I've already dealt with that before when I talked about haunted stuff on TikTok, and people are like, well, I don't believe in ghosts, this is stupid. Then don't click on the video, okay? This isn't a For You page. Just click out. I don't know why you clicked this video. Anyway, the Creeper. A lot of people don't believe that it's human because the Creeper is known for crawling on the ceilings, the walls, dropping from the ceiling to the floor and crawling at people. Nobody knows where this thing came from. Nobody knows anything about it besides what it does during investigations. I'm sorry, if I saw that thing, I would freak the fuck out. I wouldn't mess with the Creeper. I'm sorry. That just sounds terrifying to me. Imagine seeing something on the ceiling. Not first only seeing something huge on the ceiling, because my first instinct would be a gigantic spider. So seeing something on the ceiling alone, that big, would freak me out. And then seeing it drop and scurry at me? No. No ma'am, no sir, no thank you. It's also said about the Creeper that when it's near, a lot of people have felt a sense of doom, of horror. Yeah. This thing definitely is not human. Definitely not a human. The second ghost I'm going to talk about is the ghost of Timmy. Timmy is a young boy that is said to have fallen from the playground roof because they also had kids here at Waverly Hills. Nobody was safe from tuberculosis. And the kids had playgrounds on big portions of roofs, and it said that Timmy was one of these children that was playing, and he fell off the roof tragically and died. And so now he haunts Waverly Hills, and he likes balls. Timmy, I believe, is on the 3rd floor. I'm gonna fact check that real quick. I believe it's the 3rd floor. I just looked on many websites and I don't see anything about specifically where Timmy likes to play, but I believe it was the 3rd floor that they said in one of the videos I watched. Anyway, Timmy is the ghost of the boy that fell off the roof, and he likes to play ball. A lot of information from investigators that have come and went have said that Timmy likes to roll the ball towards people or away from people. And that's Timmy. On to the next spirit. The 3rd one we really don't know that much about, and that is the ghost of a young girl that likes to run up and down the hallways of the solarium. I assume that's a place where they had sunlight. So, yeah, there's a little girl running around and giggling. The 4th one is a very sad tale, and this is the story of William. When Waverly was abandoned and nobody was really taking care of it, there was this homeless man that came in with his dog Sadie, and William, the homeless man, was sleeping in there, and he was, keeping people away from the building. His dog would help him and bark at people that were trespassing. And one day the owners kind of found out about him being there, and they're like, hey, you kind of can't be in this abandoned building. And he's like, yeah, but it's winter right now, and if you let me stay, I will keep keeping people out. Just let me stay for the winter, and then I'll get out of here. Which they agreed. They even brought him like blankets and food and stuff sometimes. And William and Sadie did their jobs. They kept people away from Waverly, and he was allowed to stay there during the winter. And one day, somebody went in to go check things out, check on William and make sure he was okay, and nobody could find him. They went into the room that they gave him by the elevator shaft where he was known to hang out when he wasn't patrolling the building, and they couldn't find William. They couldn't even find Sadie, his dog. Until, sadly, there was a smell coming from the elevator shaft, and when they opened it up, William and his dog were found unalived. So now William and Sadie haunt the building, and it's said that if you are nice and respectful to William and the building, that he is more than willing to talk to you, and he's most active by the elevator shaft, where his room was right next to the elevator. So it makes sense why him and maybe his dogs still roam the halls, still taking care of the place, and he will definitely talk to you. I've seen him on multiple videos being very active, and he's nice to you, but if you aren't nice to him or respectful of the building, William is said to make things not good for you. So be nice. If you visit Waverly, be nice and maybe bring a treat for his dog, because that is a friendship that is so cute. Like, the man's dog is with him still. That's a love you want, right? That is such a love that you want. That is so kind of bittersweet, but at least he has his dog, right? The next spirit at Waverly is a white man in a white coat that is known to be in the kitchen, and there is always the smell of freshly baked bread whenever this spirit is near, according to investigators. And even though the kitchen looks dilapidated, there's no real working equipment in there, so why are people smelling freshly baked bread? It's gotta be a ghost. Now we're gonna talk about some of the hot spots, so to speak, for paranormal activity at Waverly Hills. And a couple of these actually have tales of their own and haunts of their own. So the first one is what's known as the Body Chute. The Body Chute is in the basement of Waverly Hills, and it is said that the Body Chute is a 500 feet long tunnel that's underneath the building, and this was made specifically for the purpose of moving bodies without the other patients knowing, which they believed that, you know, if there was constantly bodies being rolled out, that, you know, morale would drop, people wouldn't want to survive, they probably would see, you know, all these people dying, and would just be like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna make it. Definitely not. I mean, there goes Jerry. I can see why they made it. So they didn't want to see, you know, have the patients see who was dying, and so they made the body chute. So you can imagine that this chute has seen a lot of bodies. So it only makes sense that the creeper likes to frequent the body chute. And there's also the feeling of hands touching people from all different angles. That's gross. Don't like that. There's also a woman, supposedly, that looks like she's tied up and she is crying for help in the body tunnel, the body chute. A lot of people feel uneasy in the tunnel. A lot of people hear scraping and growling and all kinds of weird noises down there. And it's one of the hot spots of Waverly. I took my beanie off. It was starting to feel like it was sliding off my head. Anyways. So, the next one we're going to talk about is the infamous Room 502. And what's gone on in Room 502 is that there are two specific legends surrounding nurses. The first one being that a nurse decided to hang herself due to an unwanted pregnancy, which at the time was very frowned upon to not only be unmarried but pregnant, but to sleep with an already married man. So legend goes that this nurse had an affair with a doctor and she got pregnant, and then the depression of all of it just made her end herself. Now there's also people that don't believe that legend. There are people that have gotten a lot of different voice recordings and yes or no responses from supposedly this nurse, and it tells a different story. So now the story is that it differs. It still differs depending on what is said. It depends on who you're talking to, but to some people they believe that she was just depressed and that she wasn't pregnant, never pregnant. She just made her decision and was calm in it and just ended herself by herself in Room 502. Now there is a second nurse that supposedly worked in Room 502 after the other nurse, and that she got so depressed, so sad whenever working in that room that she threw herself off the roof of that floor, but other people say that she was pushed. Now here's a couple random things about Waverly that I didn't know exactly where to put in my plans for this video. So, here are some random things about Waverly Hills. The first one is known as the Waverly Challenge. What the Waverly Challenge is you and another person take on the challenge together. One person is to go up with a retrieval object, which is something that the other person that's going to go up after you is going to grab that object, take a picture of it, and bring it down with them. Now, what you're supposed to do in the challenge is you take up the retrieval object all the way to the 5th floor, no lights, no nothing, just you in the dark, walking up there, leaving the object, coming back down, and then your friend goes up and grabs it and comes back down. And the way to win the challenge is to take pictures of both of your journeys up there and then prove that you have succeeded in the Waverly Challenge. The craziest version I've seen of this challenge personally comes from the YouTube channel Sam and Colby. Shout out to Sam and Colby. And when they did the Waverly Challenge, which I totally recommend you watching their Waverly Hills video, it's so crazy. But when they did the Waverly Challenge, Sam left a REM pod, which is a sensor of sorts for temperature and sound, like You come close to it, it has a little force field around it, you break the force field, and then it goes off. So, he left a REM pod down there, and then Sam left the REM pod, and then Colby was coming to get it, and the thing was going nuts. There was nobody around. The thing was going crazy. Like, I was freaking out when I first watched that. I'm like... And then, some people have been feeling the intrusive thought or the intrusive need to jump off the roofs when they get near the roofs. Yeah. Maybe don't go by any roofs when you're at Waverly. Just a suggestion. And there are some other spots of the hospital, like the morgue, the nurses' station is pretty active. And then there are a lot of shadow people that walk around. The most common spirit that you see at Waverly Hills Sanatorium is shadow people, where you'll see these black shadow people crossing in the side of your eyes. Like if you're looking like this and something passes like that, that's what you see at Waverly the most, is shadow people. And there's even a well-known shadow person that is known to take the form of a man in a trench coat, and he stands in doorways. So those are the most well-known spirits at Waverly. And now, can you visit Waverly Hills? Yes, you can take tours. Do you have to be a paranormal investigator? No, you don't have to be a paranormal investigator. They have tours for regular people all the time at Waverly. I'm really interested in this building. Where can I find more out? Well, there are plenty of podcasts that have talked about Waverly. There are plenty of YouTube channels. The Waverly Hills actually has a website. They have an entire historical website. They also have one for the tours. And I totally recommend you looking into that first. There is a whole bunch of resources all over Google, and there's podcasts and YouTube channels, including Sam and Colby, the Overnight channel. A whole bunch of other YouTubers have done it. So this is a pretty big spot for people to go. So, what did you learn? Would you go here? Would you investigate here? Let me know. And if you ever have a suggestion for a haunted location you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments below. That would be great. And that's what I got for you guys today. If you feel like it, please hit the like and the subscribe button. I don't just talk about haunted locations. I also talk about books, movies, TV shows, anime. Anything that I find interesting, it goes on the channel. That's why the name's The Random Show. It's random for a reason. So if you look around the channel, I'm sure you'll find something you like. So that's what I got for you guys. I love you all so much, and I hope you have the best day. Bye.